So today I kind of want to cover some things. Well, one of the things I'm pretty late on in terms of like it happened like a couple weeks ago, I think. But I kind of want to cover it anyway because I was moving, and then when I got back from moving, I was addressing other things at the time. So whatever. And that would be the whole Fiona Moar, Lily Gladstone situation. I just kind of want to review it. I have some thoughts. And then I also want to show you guys, I'm just going to show you the original, like the initial card that I made to go over the categories. I'm not going to show you the actual questions at this time, but I want to show you guys the categories for the Jeopardy game I made because I'm trying to get people to come play it. And so we'll go over that. We'll go over the Jeopardy game a little bit, and then I'll probably cover the whole Lily Gladstone Fiona Moore situation last. We'll probably start with the Jeopardy game. Um, Also, toxic TikTok trends. I think the page is down on YouTube, so we're gonna look at that. And last but not least, we'll just kind of touch back up on the She Evolves live event situation and look at what is the social media outcome of that altercation and everything like that, and how She Evolves has handled the promotion of it, and did people still attend, and all of that. We'll look at that too. So yeah, all right, I'm gonna roll my intro and then we'll get started. Thank you for joining me today. Hi, my name is Alexis, also known as Lexi or Deaf Child. I was born deaf, hard of hearing. I began doing business as Deaf Child 2013, marketing 2011, sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. My Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. Anyway, I'm here to bitch about whatever the fuck is on my mind. So here we go. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk to you guys just a little bit about the Jeopardy game that I'm trying to get going here. So, let's try here. Will this work? Yeah, this kind of works. So, the categories here that we have for the Jeopardy game I'm trying to do are, we've got, it's like, oh, also, it's a Northern Native American edition in terms of like what most of the questions and answers relate to, but that's just because I just went with some shit that I happen to know. It's not to exclude anybody, it's just to, you know. But yeah, but it's gonna be about music, movies, TV shows, historical figures, modern leaders, and moments on TikTok. Are kind of the categories here. And if you do want to play, you know, I'm really trying to get that going. I don't think it's gonna happen tonight this time. Like, cause last time I did this with Wheel of Fortune, I was like, let's plan Wheel of Fortune, and I was able to make two of my friends do it then. Um, but tonight I know that people are busy, so I don't think that's gonna be the case this time around. But if anybody does want to play Wheel of Fortune, please do that. So let me know when you're free to join the panel and all of that. And if I can't find anybody to play Wheel of Fortune with me, then what I'll probably do is just eventually show you guys the presentation that I made anyway, bucket. But yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find some people to play Jeopardy first before I resort to that. So anyway, this is the card, and just putting it out there. I think it'll be kind of fun, good way to distract ourselves from some stuff. So yeah, putting that out there if anybody does want to play. The card is made and I'm ready to do it. So yeah, and the categories here that we do have this time around would be, as you can see, music, movies, TV shows, historical figures, modern leaders, and moments on TikTok. Did I say that already? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, y'all get the fucking point. So it's got the presentation here, and whenever you click on the link for each amount, it will take you to the question, and then I can scroll down to the answer, right? And then I also have it set to where like there's a logo right here on the bottom of each page, and that will take you back here. So that way I don't have to keep scrolling through the whole thing. And then this little card right here, I figured I would just use this as a scorecard or like a mark card to mark off when certain amounts had been called or whatever, so we would know what's been called and what's available. So yeah. So that's probably how I'm gonna play it. And then just for where we're getting the rules from, just kind of like from a quick Google search, how I'm gonna play those rules when it happens is, you pick what you want to guess an answer for. So say you choose TV shows for 800, and then you can either win or lose $800 / points depending on if you get the answer right. So take that from their rules or whatever. Kind of play it like that. And then I figured last time on Wheel of Fortune, I was just kind of giving people like, the making it easier for the players. But I think this time we'll let people either choose, or maybe on the higher questions, like the $1,000 ones, we'll do the Jeopardy theme song while we wait for the answer. But I was thinking we could just do like a 30-second timer. So that way it just makes the game go quicker, keeps us all on track. And I think that's like, you have like 5 seconds to answer in the actual TV show, but whatever. I was thinking we do 30. Or you have 5 seconds to start an answer. But I was just thinking if you answer in 30 seconds, you're fine. Yeah, according to Google. But I was thinking we do it like a little timer or some shit like that. And just kind of figure it out from there. But yeah. And next up, I want to draw your attention to the fact that, okay, so Toxic TikTok Unveiled is still up, but they don't have that many videos. Toxic Trends on TikTok, they had hundreds of videos, and now their whole fucking YouTube page is like down. It just says this page isn't available. Sorry about that. Try searching for something else. So what does that mean? Wrong button. Usually, whenever that happens, it means that it could be suspended or terminated for violating policies. The creator could have hidden it, but why would they hide that one but not the unveiled one, right? Or it could be tied to a restricted Google account, and which would make it inaccessible. And so yeah, I'm wondering if people were reporting that account or something like that, or what. But it's kind of unfortunate to me that it got taken down. You know what I mean? I don't know. I thought they had even though I didn't agree with everything they were saying with their opinions attached to the videos, I felt like they had a lot of good evidence on people and a lot of things, that's been up for years, so I didn't even imagine it would get taken down. And so a lot of the videos I've made, I've been telling people go check Toxic Trends on TikTok, and now it's not even there anymore. So all of that evidence I was previously referring to is gone, and so, yeah, I feel like in a lot of situations when people do try to put the evidence of things that happened out there, they will get reported, because the people who, that they're proving did these things don't want that evidence out there, typically, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but, I feel like that's my analysis on what happened, and, yeah, so I'm hoping that they can appeal and come back, if they were banned or something like that from YouTube, or I'm hoping that they have all of their content and they can re-upload somewhere else. But now I'm wondering, because I had wondered why they made the Toxic TikTok Unveiled, the Toxic TikTok Trends was doing so well, because I thought it was the same person based on the similar editing styles, and diverting the traffic, could make it's harder to build 2 platforms at once than one, right? So I was wondering why they did that, but now I'm wondering if they did that because they already saw strikes going down on the other account, and so they went ahead and prepped this one. Maybe that's me just putting shit onto it, but that's what I'm wondering. But I was like, holy fuck, I could not believe that the toxic TikTok trends is gone. Like, wow, they had like 2, maybe 3 years of evidence of events that was, I felt, really important. Even if I disagree with all the commentary on it, I felt like it was really important to have the evidence of a lot of these things that were said and done. And now that evidence isn't easily accessible in one place anymore, you know? And so that does show you the value of toxic TikTok trends, whether or not you agree with them. So, yeah. Speaking of things that I don't think I agree with, we're going to go into the She Evolves live event. And I have the playlist linked in the description of this video also. I meant to cover them a few weeks ago because I think the timeline changed, because I kind of swore they originally were scheduled for the 17th, not the 27th. But maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But honestly, the 27th makes way more sense. I probably am remembering that wrong, because the 17th would be on a Wednesday, the 27th was on a Saturday. That makes way more sense. I probably remembered that wrong. But anyway, I meant to cover them, but it was my birthday weekend. I was in the middle of moving, holidays, and then other issues came up that I ended up discussing my commentary on instead. But I wanted to just kind of go over a quick recap. Basically, I forget their names, but there were 2 ladies that were originally going to be the co-hosts of this event that were originally co-planning. Even though it was one of their initial idea, that person did invite the other person on, and the other person did do a lot of work, in my opinion, in order to participate in co-hosting the event outside of the scope of a typical. So there's 2 types of ways you can co-host an event. Sometimes the definition of a host is just the person that is the front-facing person at the event, but they don't do anything behind the scenes. And so in that case, they typically don't take ownership of it. Versus another type of co-host of an event could be the co-producer, co-promoter, co-owner, the person who is collaborating in, you know what I'm saying, the communication, the production, and everything of that nature of the event. And that is what I saw based on the evidence in this case. Well, in part of that, a conflict arose, and related to that conflict was the concept of, would it be okay for deaf people to come, and this chick that was removed from being part of the event was trying to get an ASL interpreter on board, from my understanding. And the other person, who is the one that actually ended up throwing the event, didn't want the ASL interpreter and the deaf people there, basically, according to the person who got removed. That part of their argument was over that and over the funding for that. But the girl who got removed was saying she was going to offer to pay for it. And then the co-host, the one that kicked her out, was basically claiming there wasn't gonna be enough room for the deaf people, maybe next time. And this person saying, no, with accessibility, it's now or never. You know, you can either choose to give access now, or there's not going to be another time for this exact moment. It's like there's no reason not to give accessibility, particularly in relation to all of that. They were also trying to sell more tickets still and upcharge and things of that nature. And so, yeah, like with that, all of that, you know, if you go check those original videos, playlists linked in the description, if I interpreted that correctly, I felt like the person who did end up throwing this event was partaking in discriminating against deaf community. And then she was trying to be like, oh, love and light, y'all are mean for no reason, whenever she was held accountable for the ableism regarding that from her own community, you know, in my opinion. So, yeah, we covered the drama behind that, what was said, and everything of that nature from both of the hosts. And then we also covered the sales funnel in a different video, where I looked over what I thought was good and what I thought was bad about their buyer's journey and their marketing. And in this live, I just kind of want to provide an update on how did that night go as far as we can tell online. We know previously she had claimed it was sold out. And even if you go to the tickets now, like, it doesn't say like, oh, this event is over. It says sold out for the tickets. Let's put that on the bigger window, see if you can see the sold out button there. So yeah, it says that for both ticket pricing there, that it's sold out. But it's in this light gray. It's kind of hard to read, but you know, hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. And so yeah. And when it comes to how did that end up going though, like I decided let's just check the Instagram, like how did she manage all of that. So when we had last looked at the Instagram, only the first 2 posts were made. Since then she's posted about the goodie bags. She shared this. I'm interested in what this one is. Let's see. It's just like, it looks almost as if it's like a magazine cover in terms of the design of the graphics on the image, but it says she evolves lives, everything you need to know. Did I say lives plural? I meant to say she evolves live, but whatever. And so it explains the check-in process that they were gonna have. And let's see, all I'm covering right now is a picture. So it shows the check-in process. When you arrive, you will check in using your first and last name, the email address you used to purchase your ticket, and it says, please note some tickets, it's not really letting me zoom in here. Some tickets are purchased using a billing name or a different email. For example, a friend or family member purchased on your behalf. If that applies to you, no worries. It may just take an extra moment to locate your ticket. And then it shows doors and timing. And so the doors open at 5. No entry after 6:30, and the event ended at 9. At the end, it says, please plan to arrive early. Late entry will not be permitted as we want to ensure a smooth experience for all attendees and an uninterrupted panel. And so, yeah. I feel like that's pretty strict, you know, for an event, but that wouldn't really fly in New Orleans, I feel like. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong for thinking that. And then after that, she does post a video of event attendees here. And in my opinion, you can see like there's one empty chair behind her head. There's an empty chair in the next row. There's like 2 empty chairs in the row after that. There's like 1 or 2 at least chairs empty in each row that you can see visible. In the beginning of this front row here, and then you can see even more chairs, like right here there's like 2 or 3, in my opinion, chairs visible, so you can see a good amount of chairs visible. And I feel like on what I can see from the other side, it's kind of similar as well in this video that they posted, in my opinion. And when I counted, I could see that there's 7 people, there's 7 chairs if I'm not mistaken. And then there's, I think there's like 10 rows. I think it is supposed to be for 140 people or 150 or so for the seating. And usually whenever you're doing after event marketing, what you're gonna do is try to make it all look as good and as busy as possible, right? Typically, in my opinion. So that's why I feel like the way the camera's catching it does make it look pretty good, and it is pretty full because there is at least 100 people there, if not more, that you can see for sure, right? But when you also count how many empty chairs are there, it's like there are totally room for some the deaf family that didn't get to make it, in my opinion, based on what went down, if all of that is true. And I do feel that this is potentially some evidence also that cutting out that other host did impact the attendance of this event after all, in my opinion. But, you know, that's just me speculating at this point. I want to see if I can get it to pause. They had briefly panned over to the left. Oh, right here. Oh, it's blurry. Let's see. If I unpause it right now, let's see if I can get it more. Okay, that's about as clear as we're probably gonna get it. Okay, let's put it on a bigger window and drag it over a little. Oh, wrong way. Wrong button, I mean. Okay, so can we enlarge this now? Okay, it looks like there are indeed more empty chairs on the right side than the left, but if that's the case, you would think you would want to focus on this other side more. But you know what? I can see some empty chairs, particularly towards the back there and over on the side by the wall here and on the back here. I do believe I see some empty chairs if I'm not mistaken. Potentially over there, I don't know. Yeah, I think I do see some empty chairs over there. I am gonna say there's, somewhere potentially between like 20 or more chairs missing. I think they could have had much closer to 150 in attendance there in that seating. If it weren't for the drama that went down, I'm gonna move this around, sorry, until I get it right. If it weren't for the drama that went down with that co-host, I think there would have been better attendance for this event personally. And I do think that she is seeing some of the consequences of that, based on not following through with those commitments and things like that. Okay, we need to go in a little more. I hadn't made that much bigger than I thought I did. Ah, fuck it. It's probably good enough for now. So, yeah. Anyway, y'all get the point here. I believe that the attendance did suffer there. Next up, let's see. She's got some of the attendees posted. It looks like it is a good event. I just disagree with some of the issues that happened surrounding the event. I think she got a little bit more focused on coming off as perfect with everything than being genuine with the community aspect, in my opinion. But the photos and the visuals of it do look very Instagrammable, very good. They also have a good amount of people tagging them, and so you can see that as well. But you'll also notice that a lot of these videos, it does kind of show more of a less populated room, or that there was a lot of space, So I think on top of getting everybody to sit down, there was so much to do there that it made it look less full than it may have been, because people could have been in other spaces. But yeah, so I also feel like maybe the event space was too big for the audience attendance, to get a more fuller look, if that did matter. Which it can help with remarketing. There's like a balance. If things are too crowded, then people may not want to go because it doesn't look any fun. But if things aren't busy enough, then people don't want to go because then they don't think others are interested. So there's a fine line with events. But yeah, and events are real hard to do. So I do think she did really good work with the event planning. I disagree with what happened with the ASL interpreter and with the co-host situation. But it is interesting to see the results of this, and we'll see if she ends up throwing another event this year, 2026. All right, so moving on. Oh, I see we have another visitor in the house. So before we get to our last topic, I just want to remind everybody here, I did make a Jeopardy game. I am trying to get some people to play this game with me. If you want to schedule a time to get on my panel to play a Jeopardy game, please let me know. It is native themed. The categories are music, movies, TV shows, historical figures, modern leaders, and moments on TikTok. So let me know. Would love to get you on the panel. We're going to play some Jeopardy if I can get some panelists. If I can't find panelists, then eventually I'll just show you what the fuck this presentation is. But anyway, okay. Now to our last topic of today, and that would be Miss Fiona Moar. Now, I have appreciated some of her videos before, like, I think that this one on Shania Twain that she did, I think that's pretty good awareness for people to have. And so, like, I'm about to criticize what she did on Lily Gladstone, but I don't think that just because I disagree with that necessarily means that, like, let's just throw everything she's ever said in the trash, which is how some people I feel are going at it. But I do disagree with a lot of the statements she made in this original video. And I also agree with the outcome with how she responded to the community fallout. But before I get there, I also feel like this Kelsey Chow video would probably be a good one too to watch for just informational purposes. If that, all of that information is true, you know, those the Shania Twain and the Kelsey Chow, and that's not to discredit her. It's just to say I haven't done my own research into it. But if those things are true, you know, those are good videos with good information to have. But I just want to take a look at the Lily Gladstone one now. So starting off, she basically, it says, Descendian pretendian Lily Gladstone. I did not reach out to Lily and ask for proof. Oh, it says I did, not did not. My bad. I did reach out to Lily and ask for proof that she lived on the res. Despite her being such low blood quantum, I think the worst thing was being lied to about her childhood. I find this right here problematic, weaponizing, like right here, she's saying despite her being such low blood quantum, which is an admission that she has indigenous ancestry, in my opinion, right? So that would make her just a descendian, not a pretendian, in my opinion. And, um, yeah. Um, in terms of whether or not she lived on the res, I can't speak to that. But what I can say is I have seen people speak out to say that what Lily speaks on about her history is true. So, you know, I didn't prep any of those statements for this. This video does have a lot of comments. So some people are saying, you know, she won an award, and people are telling her, like, you're a woman of passion, find somewhere beneficial to focus, but they're also calling her jealous. Some other people are saying she probably wasn't raised Indian and highly likely a descendian pretendian. And other people, one person here said there are tons of people in the comments who grew up with her on the res and went to school with her on the res. Someone else said she's literally indigenous. And someone else said, here, this is confusing to me. So if she has indigenous blood, how is she a pretendian? My boyfriend is from Montana, specifically an enrolled member of the Blackfeet Reservation. I know that the nation is proud to claim her and she has family ties. He has even seen her there. So I'm having a hard time grasping where or how she becomes a pretendian. I never comment on your posts, but this time I had to because I just know there's a whole nation out there. So yeah, and then that claims her. You know, people are claiming her. And so yeah, some people are saying they worked on set with her and she's good people, and that they were proud to know her and be on the scene with her. And then, so someone with the last name Gladstone, I am Alex Gladstone. You don't know how sideways you are. Howard's father is Georgia and mother Erbeth. Too bad you're not a trained genealogist. If you're an attorney, you'd be found lacking. And then she said she was, someone else in the family said it was Wallace, not Chester. That's interesting. I don't know enough about this screenshot though to know how it fits in, but you know. And Fiona said, I don't think you're the right Alex. He was born in 1887, married to her great-grandmother, talking about the family. And he just said his name was Alex Gladstone, which is true. She said, of course, not Gramps was the one I'm named after. Chester is my father. Violet is my mother. Lily's parents are Howard and Betty. Howard, who I grew up with. You are very sideways. So yeah. But it says Violet and Chester right there. So now I'm confused as to where she's getting corrected at. Or was it the last names? I don't know. And then she said, insulting someone who's trying to correct themselves. But it doesn't really sound like she's trying to correct yourself if you're saying you don't think you're right about your own family. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That's just me personally. But she says, who did he marry and why should I believe your info to be factual over the person saying Wallace was her grandfather? It's like if people try to tell me who my parents are. And Fiona said, Alex said to Fiona, you have to go back to old Glad William Gladstone that came out to Hudson's Bay circa 1844. His firstborn, William Jr., my great-grandfather, who was an interpreter for the RCMP in Calgary, I cannot pronounce this, the Umskapi Pekuni, I am so sorry, y'all, that was terrible, Southern Blackfeet, know our people. The 48 is my mother's father's, Marcus Finier, or something like that, oops. My Lily's grandmother was Irmith, related to the Nez Perce Scots in Lapai. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So now that you've claimed knowledge of ancestry, it's time for you to identify your ancestry. You know what? I'm not zooming in more. Can y'all see this? And then Fiona said, thank you for the info. I'm Cree from Saddle Lake and Ojibwe from Lake St. Martin. Here's your write-up, but it's all verified on my Ancestry account. I've included files and links to each person. For the last 3 generations of my family, all native except for one. Okay. And then we have another person here, Catherine Gladstone Bell, verifying that this is a member of the family, I believe. And then they keep arguing about this situation. And he's basically like, say what the fuck you want, I know who the fuck I am, basically, in a nutshell. You know what I mean? That's not word for word, but yeah. And then Fiona steps out of that conversation. And then Catherine said, while I admire your tenacity, you got her grandparents wrong. We have a lot of repeat names in our family, so I get it's confusing. Oh my god. And then Fiona's arguing again, no, I don't think I did. Who do you think her grandparents were? The way she's arguing to actual Blackfeet people, to the Gladstone name, to the actual, that about who their family is, are you kidding me? It's like if someone, oh my goodness. Like, okay, so my dad is one of 11 kids. So it's like if someone tried to argue with me about who my uncles are or something. But yeah. Anyway. And then Fiona said, oh wait. So she said, so after that she said, perfect. So who are Lily's grandparents? Because like I said, I spent over 12 hours researching this and he had 6 sons. So I had to use process of elimination. Someone said Wallace. Was it this family tree? In the records I found, he only had daughters and couldn't find a connection to Howard Allen Gladstone. And then Catherine replied, I think that online family tree is off because Gail is still living. Did you verify these sources with family members before posting the videos? I can tell you that Lily very much grew up on the res, like she said, and we actually still own the house she grew up in. It's very much on the res. And then somebody else said grew up on the res, like partying in the summertime or something like that, or like living with other family members and not living with her parents, because her parents were found to be living elsewhere. And then Catherine responded, she lived in an actual real-life house on the actual real-life res. And then they responded, a real house on a real res, so you mean not in a teepee. I wish people would just be completely honest. Little white lies can blow up in a second in the online world. she is a descendant, which I didn't know. I just believed she was real life Indian that grew up in a real life res, which is still partly true, I guess. I still think she's awesome and loved all her different acting roles, which what I looked for after her big break. Either way, this is good information to know. I see people are getting emotional, and this is due to so many that have deceived our people, and it sucks. I honestly think everyone in the spotlight should be investigated. Hopefully, that will make people be truthful in the future. But I don't understand how Lily ever lied about who she was. So they're admitting that Lily was telling the truth. How are you saying you didn't know she was a descendant? She's native, she's a descendant. All natives are descendants. I don't. It's just. Now they want to go with, oh, descendians aren't as native as, with the blood quantum. I think when it comes to people who are disconnected from the culture, sure, maybe we can go with that, like people who aren't raised with native values. But when it comes to people who are born on the res, raised on the res, people who have those community ties who are enrolled, I feel like that's kind of disrespectful to tribal sovereignty to gaslight the tribe on who they claim. Um, I don't know. I feel like it's real dismissive. And it's also fucked up to be like, oh, she's lying without actually proving that she's specifically lied about being a descendant. You know what I mean? In my opinion. Like, I don't think that if every single Native American doesn't need to run around being like, I'm full blooded, I only have 10%, like, or whatever. I don't agree with that. I think that leads to upholding colonialism. And I just don't understand where people want to act like mixed natives aren't valid. Um, you know what I mean? I don't know. To me, like, a descendian doesn't count to people who grew up raised in their culture. That's a mixed native. Or that's a mixed native. Or people who have done their right to get enrolled. I don't think that we should be calling every single one of them a descendian. But that's just me. I feel like it should apply to people who don't have the community connection, who don't have enrollment, who have the lineage far back, but don't have that cultural connection, things like that. Then I think descendian can apply. But, like, even then it gets dicey, particularly with that being tied to each of our genocide. So I also feel like, say you're from one tribe that didn't experience genocide the same way as us, I can understand why for you guys, for example, for tribes that were not contacted until the 1800s, if somebody was no longer part of your tribe in the 1700s or before the first contact, it wouldn't make sense for them to claim part of your culture when they haven't been part of the culture for hundreds of years, but it was by choice. It wasn't by colonialism that line disconnected. Then I could see why people are like, well, fuck you. But when it comes to where people are disconnected by force, I think it's up to each tribe. So I respect tribal sovereignty when tribes don't allow enrollment still based on a certain time frame. But I think the reason a lot of tribes do, which I do support, is because it's tied to each of our genocide and the origins of where people try to erase us. And so if we can undo that pain point, that's where we can maintain tribal sovereignty, claim all the descendants. And another thing is, I feel like if tribes were to reach their descendants and teach them, and have an appropriate position for them within the tribe, I think that could also help with tribal sovereignty through powers and numbers, in my opinion, particularly when it comes to things like the land back movement, and what can we do to facilitate transitioning power from colonial institutions to tribal sovereignty. That's just my opinion. But yeah, and for context, this is my dad. And these are my parents. And I think that, like, people even consider, like, sometimes, when people call you a descendant, it might be because you look white like me, but people will even call my dad a descendant once they know his lineage. Um, I said once they know his lineage, the captioner is not getting that fucking thing right. But yeah, a lot of people, they question, like, who am I? Who is my dad? Um, and some people, they are saying it's rude for me to call myself a descendant based on my lineage because it's disrespectful to my ancestors. And some people, they only see me as a descendant because of how I am. Um, so that's up to you. So I think that can be very subjective, and I think it does tie to people's genocides. And I think sometimes people's logic with it does make sense for their own tribal history. But sometimes I think that people are kind of weaponizing rhetoric that's been used from colonialism to eradicate us instead of honoring tribal sovereignty for other tribes to decide who is or isn't part of their tribe, in my opinion. But yeah. Um, but yeah, so then the Catherine Gladstone said, I just assumed he knew what I meant when I said she grew up on the res. And to be clear, my grandma Violet is the white lady Fiona Moar keeps referring to, and I 100% agree with your sentiments. And then Fiona has tagged Catherine in some ancestry documents here that I'm just not going to pull up right now. And then she says, I tried, but I was ignored. Until now, I'm trying to verify information and get it as factual as possible. And she said, I understand. I just wish you would have tried contacting her immediate family before posting this video. And it says, Chet and Violet are my grandparents, not Lily's grandparents. Until you get to Howard, that's my family tree. We could have saved you 12 hours of research, but I get it. It's a content. Damn. Damn. She says, thank you for being an advocate, but I promise you Lily is not a pretender. And then someone else said, I can't believe she's not listening to you when this is your family. And Catherine said, it's okay, the internet is where it could be anyone claiming Lily. I get it. And Catherine said, I'm 100% sure. Violet and Chet are my grandparents, not Lily's. So, mind you, when we look at the video, the family tree will not be accurate according to family in the comments. But yeah. And then some people are saying it's always the white European people with low Native American blood quantums who overexpress their indigenous backgrounds. Then thousands of people follow them on social media because that is the face and skin color they want to see. And it says, my physical proof is all enrolled members of the Cherokee Nation in the U.S. My Apache ancestors, let alone the real Cherokee tribes, did not have pale skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair. There is also the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and pale-skinned Choctaw. When will the culture vulture tribe cease to exist, but they continue to thrive, is what this one person said here. Oof. I feel like, to a point, yeah, there's issue with pretendianism, particularly with white people. And I feel like on another level, even when we are mixed, even if I disagree with invalidating mixed people, I also do believe representation matters. And I do believe that it is more important for, people who look like my dad to represent Native issues than people like myself, because I can't speak to a lot of the things that my dad faces, I can only speak to my own issues within society and within community. And I think I do experience like xenophobia and sometimes some racism for being Native American descent. But I don't think that what white presenting descendants experience is the same as what people who present, such as my dad, experience. It's very different. And I do think there is a point with which, with colorism and with resources and with colonialism and everything, it's much easier for anybody white presenting to get a role in society, to get access and resources than someone who doesn't look like me, right? So I think that when people express on those things, that's valid. But I also feel like, to another point, though, I don't agree with dismissing the existence of mixed natives and invalidating someone just because they're mixed either. I think that should be a separate thing. Like, I think speaking on how you feel about lack of representation shouldn't be tied to invalidating somebody that happens to be mixed. Let those be two separate statements, in my opinion, right? Like, it's like there's white privilege exists, and just because you're mixed native doesn't negate your white privilege. That's a valid statement to me, but the whole concept of I look more native, so you're not native enough, I don't agree with, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because that also reinforces stereotypes about what is a native person supposed to look like. And to be honest, Native American aesthetics and how our features are vary from tribe to tribe. So I don't agree with, oh, we only looked one way, because we're all across the Americas. This is a whole like hemisphere. We had a variety of skin shades. Yes, for the most part, all of us had like black hair, and stuff. There are commonalities, and we spent our people more time in the sun. So therefore, even if our skin shade varied between paler to darker skins, we would be typically more darker skin than Europeans. See Exhibit A, European, Exhibit B. You know what I mean? So yeah. And I wore this same purple shirt forever, so that's the same fucking shirt. Yep, I like that shirt. So yeah, fucking, I don't know. Like, I feel like to a point though, that does matter. Representation does matter, and then to another point, I think there's a balance here. I don't think it should be tied to dismissing people who are native. And a lot of people who are white European people with low Native American blood quantum, those are often people of first contact. Because based on history and based on racism and segregation, statistically speaking, most of those people are people of first contact. As people who were contacted later on, they would statistically have a higher blood quantum because they were only contacted within, some people only 4 to 6 generations ago. But even then, racism and laws for intermarriage, that's literally, within the last 80 years. So a lot of people that have mixed ancestry from tribes of later contact, they are people who, they did mix within the last 3 or 4 generations, versus people like me, a first contact tribe descendant. We were contacted in the 1600s, and we were forced, and so were the people like the Taino community, and so were a lot of the Mexican American community. They were the colonizers, the Spanish, the English, the French. They forced themselves on Native American women. They would genocide, they would kill the men, they would take the women, and so a lot of us are descendants of that. And so sometimes when people, say that, it kind of dismisses like the atrocity of what happened to our family, and what does it look like 7 generations, 10 generations later from your genocide, because they're still in a closer point from theirs. If that makes sense. So I feel like everybody's perspective on the issue is really tied to our genocide on it. But yeah. Fucking, and yeah, I'm not gonna keep reading the comments. Y'all get the fucking point. There's a lot of people that stood up, that I saw online, that stood up for Lily Gladstone. I do want to watch the video a little bit more. Well, I don't think I watched that at all. I do want to watch this video and then look at some of her posts a little bit more. And yeah, but before I do that, I just want to point out on TikTok, all of her posts, like her most recent post that you can see is from February 9th, 2025. She took down all of her posts from the whole year on TikTok. And the post you can was originally posted on TikTok. And she took down everything because she was getting so much heat on all of her comments. And I'm wondering if it was to protect her account, because people will be pretty report heavy on TikTok, and you can be at easy risk of getting banned for good if you piss people off with one video or some shit, you know? So I'm wondering if that's why she took it all down. But yeah, like, she locked the fuck down on her TikTok page and took all of her videos almost for like the whole month, the whole year of 2025, from February down. The rest of 2025 gone. Yeah, I was like, damn. But she's still posting on Facebook and standing 10 toes down here. So anyway, this does not have a little caption on for me, but I can turn the other one on. So what I'm about to do is actually try and watch this little video now and see what the fuck. Oh, okay. And we'll see like what we think about this situation here. Okay.
Lily Gladstone, a pretendian. I don't know. I'm gonna lay out the facts and let you decide. So Lily Gladstone was born August 2nd, 1986 in Kalispell, Montana. She was named after her great-grandmother, Lillian Catherine Wagner Gladstone. She claims to have lived on the Blackfeet Reservation until she was 11, but the last record I can find of anybody in her family being from that reservation was her paternal grandfather.
And mind you, her uncle, her cousin, and people from the res have already come out in Lily's defense and said that all of these statements were not the truth. So I'm just putting that out there from my understanding of what's happened. And also, mind you, the family tree that we're looking at now has been basically explained like this is not correct, and from the grandparents on, it's the wrong information because she got the grandparents for her cousin. I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, something like that. If I'm not mistaken, putting it out there, the family tree is not Lily. They're Lily's relatives, but this is not Lily's family tree, if that makes sense. And you'll have to process what the fuck was said in the comments to get that better. But yeah, just a reminder.
Chester Eldon Gladstone Sr. This was the last member in her family to be enrolled to that tribe and have any record of living there. One memory she talks about frequently from her childhood is being involved in the Missoula Children's Theater, except they never stopped in Browning or the Blackfeet Reservation. It did stop in East Glacier Park, Montana, where her mother lived from 1993 to 1995, and then in Lynwood, Washington, where her mother Betty lived from 1997 to 2005. I did find evidence that her mother lived in Browning in 1995 as she was looking for a contractor for her education center, but this wasn't the rest. It was right next to it. Lily claimed to be related to Red Crow, which I was able to prove.
So, with the whole, something of that nature, I feel like if that happened when she was a kid, you know, and she's thinking back on her memory as a kid, for her, if it was close enough to the res, she may have thought she was still in the fucking res, or if it was like basically everybody on the res went to it, that's, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I saw people on TikTok basically saying that that was basically still the res to them. So maybe it's a colloquial thing. For example, there's a difference between New Orleans and the greater New Orleans area. And sometimes people will just tell people who aren't from New Orleans. Like, if they're from Metairie, they'll just say, yeah, New Orleans, instead of explaining where the fuck Metairie is, right? But then other people are very particular about that. They'll be like, Metairie isn't New Orleans, it's Metairie. And then some people, they're like, who gives a shit? Metairie's basically New Orleans. It's part of the greater New Orleans area. So sometimes it could be up to semantics and up to cultural differences on how you see that. Uh, but whatever. We have seen where her family's spoken out that Lily was actually on the res. Where that venue was, whether it's considered on the res, is not up to me. But it's just to say, like, I don't think that this warrants calling her a pretendian, in my opinion.
And then she also claimed to be related to a British premier, Gladstone, on her mother's side. Her mother's maiden name was Peace, and she was from Germany, so I wasn't able to connect that. The incident that really alerted my attention to her possible pretendian status was her headdress ceremony. On the day that she was supposed to receive a headdress from the nation, officials got security to let them in and printed out documents saying she was enrolled. She wasn't enrolled before this, and allegedly this...
For me, like, if it's the tribe doing this, then you should respect the tribe, in my opinion, and not sit here and question why would a tribe give somebody a headdress when it's one of their own members, when they determine or decide when to enroll that member, or give them a headdress upon enrolling, or acceptance into the community, perhaps for work or representation of the community. If that's what the members of the tribe decided to do, I don't think people from other tribes should be speaking on it. If it's your tribe and you have opinions about what's happening in your tribe, that's different. But I don't think it's up to any of us to determine who am I speaking right? Who Blackfeet Nation recognizes as their own. So this part, I just don't understand why it's even in the fucking video. I don't know. Yeah.
The security that let them in was fired. Did you know it's illegal for non-natives to carry eagle feathers in the States? This incident really divided the Blackfeet Nation, with some questioning the legitimacy and others standing behind her.
And this video is the first I have heard of that situation, but what I can say I've seen online is everybody I've seen from Blackfeet Nation online since this video has come out have been in support of Lily. If there are people from the Blackfeet Nation that are not in support of her, totally understand. If that is the case, would not want to dismiss your existence. I'm just saying I haven't come across one of y'all yet, if you're out there.
Now, I'm going to try to break down the family tree and be as neutral as possible, but I'm going to do something different today.
Mind you, again, it's already been proven that this family tree, they're relatives of Lily, but this is not an accurate family tree for her ancestry. That's already been proven.
We're going to go up the family tree and then back down with blood quantum. And using this...
And mind you, I don't agree with using blood quantum in this way, I respect tribes. For the tribes that do decide to use blood quantum over a lineal descendancy for their enrollment criteria, I respect your tribal sovereignty and whatever reasons you have for doing so, so this isn't about disrespecting that by any means. It's just to say I don't agree with using blood quantum because I think that contributes to the erasure of Indigenous people. And when you have a blood quantum before you no longer qualify as native, that opens the door for you to stop existing. There's a reason there's no such thing as a blood quantum for a European. You know what I mean? And that's literally because Europeans have so much mixed ancestry. And so for me, it's just like, I think that it's a tool used to erase people, and it's used to confine a group of people within their own community because it allows for the controlling of the numbers of those people. So I don't know. I just feel like sticking to lineal descendancy is something that is important to me when it comes to um, recognizing Indigenous people. I care more about, do you have ancestors, than how much blood quantum do you have. Personally, blood quantum does not matter to me personally, but yeah.
This calculator. Now, I know blood quantum is bullshit, but since I don't have access to her ancestry kit, I have to use the tools at my disposal. Okay. Now, we're going to start with...
I don't understand why that had to be done at all, because that doesn't matter. What should matter is whether or not, like, if you're calling her pretendian, because it says descendian pretendian. If you're calling her pretendian, then you would need to prove she has no Indigenous ancestry, in my opinion. A descendian is not a pretendian. Those are two different things, in my opinion. If you want to call her a descendian because you don't like how far back her lineage goes or whatever, I still think, like that's, so it only takes, because for example, she's 75% native, right? That's what Fiona said she was, 75% native. Um, if she were to marry, theoretically, let's say she married someone who was not Indigenous, those kids wouldn't even be 50%. Say those kids marry someone who's not Indigenous, generation 2. Those kids wouldn't even be 25%. And say that third generation marries someone who's not Indigenous. Those kids might not even be 10%. It would only take 3 generations from her, by her metric, for her kids to be descendians, to not be native. However, what if that was the case, right? But she taught her children her language and her culture and her customs, her dances, her food. And they passed, and their ways of life. And they passed that down to their kids. And they passed that down to their kids. So 3 generations later, they know exactly as much as her about her family history, about her language, her culture, her customs, everything. They have her knowledge, they have her teachings 3 generations later, but because they married outside, they don't have the blood quantum. Would they still be native? Or would those be descendians? That's my question. I think people weaponize blood quantum to call people a descendian, or to act like someone's a pretendian, when really it's just upholding colonial rhetoric, in my opinion. I think an actual descendian is someone who wasn't able to maintain any sort of cultural connection, any sort of family connection. Obviously they have the ancestry, but in terms of maintaining a relationship with those family members, you know, like the having the historical knowledge, the customs, the language, the everything, the food, all of that. I think that's when we can call people a descendian and be like, look, you were not brought up in your ways. But you do have the ancestry. And then it's up for the tribe to determine, in my opinion, each tribe should be the one to determine who fits as their member. And if someone is claimed by their tribe, I don't think that they have to disclose how connected are they. I can understand if you call them, catch them in a lie, a point blank period lie, being upset about that and calling that out. But I don't understand in these cases, or in this example right here, why you would sit there and call somebody who actually is proven to be native a pretendian. It doesn't sit right with me. And I think if someone's enrolled, we shouldn't be calling them a descendian because you have done a certain amount of work to get enrolled. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of disagree with that right there. I think what that does is opens the door for normalizing dismissing tribal sovereignty, in my opinion. And it doesn't sit right with me.
Lily, we're going to start at the very bottom because I go very far with this one. Now, her parents were Howard Allen Gladstone and Betty Ann Peace Gladstone. Okay. They were both born in 1953 and they married in Washington. Now, Howard's parents were not going to continue with Betty Ann because she is European, but Howard's parents were Violet.
And once again, it's been confirmed that this family tree she's going into right now is the family tree for Lily's cousin, not for Lily. According to Lily's cousin, if I understood that correctly, this family tree is wrong for Lily Gladstone. It's not accurate, if I understood that correctly. Lily is technically related to these people, but this isn't Lily's family tree, if that makes sense. So yeah, keep that in mind. Although there will be common ancestors, obviously, because they're cousins, but there's inaccuracies here.
Fournier Gladstone and Chester Eldon Gladstone Sr. This one was quite confusing because he had a lot of juniors. Actually, 2 generations. Okay. And Violet is white, so we're gonna just...
Oh yeah, and whenever Fiona was called out for the misinformation on the family tree, Fiona was basically like, well, I used process of elimination and it could have only been so and so because these are the only people who I saw. And the reply given to that was that they thought she had the wrong tree because certain relatives were still living, and so she wouldn't be able to access those living trees, which is probably why she couldn't see the accurate lineage.
Let's continue with Chester's. Chester's parents are Alexander Clarence. We're going to say Alex Clarence Gladstone. And Lillian Catherine Wagner, who she's named after. And then these 2 generations had large families. Chester and Violet had 6 sons and 3 daughters, and Lillian and Alexander had 3 sons and 6 daughters. So it took a little bit finding which was her lineage. So Lillian's parents were John William Wagner and Mary Lucy Redcrow. And Alex was Indigenous, so we're going to continue with this line a little bit. Alex's parents were William Gladstone, and this was where the Gladstone name was introduced. And Mary St. Marks. I can actually, this is the furthest I've ever gone, but Mary's parents were Redcrow and Woman Sits with Gun. And then John Williams, we're gonna go here. John Williams was William Russell and Pipe Woman. Now, it's not hard to spot the colonizer ancestor here. But everyone was native in this generation except for, you guessed it, William. Mary Lucy. So that would make Mary Lucy 4 out of 4. And John William was half. So then when we go to Mary St. Mark's, she was Indigenous, 4 out of 4. And William Gladstone was 0 out of 4, as far as I could tell. He was the colonizer ancestor. And then Lillian was 3 out of 4. Alex would have been half. And when you take a 3/4 and a half, you get 5/8. Now I have documentation saying that Chester and Howard were, I believe, 11/16, which would have been impossible because Violet was white, and it would make it scientifically impossible for them to be the same blood quantum. So we have to use the calculator, unfortunately. So then Howard would have been 5/16, which would make Lily 5/32. Except most of that is from the...
And mind you, if I'm not mistaken, it is Howard's parents that she got wrong, if I'm not mistaken. Which is, so this is off, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. And on top of the problematic issues here, like, why does the blood quantum even fucking matter? It doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just disagree heavily with that even being brought up or relevant in this discussion. Yeah, like, so to me, so let's look, let's talk about that. What is the definition of a descendant? Let's break that down, right? Like, okay, so often it will be a person with distant, often several generations removed. So we've already admitted she's not removed several generations, because by your own fucking tree that you're showing here, like we've been discussing just a few generations ago, she was connected. So I don't think that fits here. To claims Indigenous identity without meaningful connection, cultural experience, or membership. I do not feel that descendian applies to Lily Gladstone, and I do not feel pretendian applies to Lily Gladstone. You can call me a descendian. I'm not a pretendian. You can call me a descendian because I didn't grow up on the res. I didn't grow up, like, I grew up with the history. I didn't grow up with the language, but I've been learning the language since 2023. But I grew up with the history. I grew up with the, my dad with certain cultural elements that were passed on, but I didn't get to have the language. I didn't get to have the community involvement and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And in my community, like in other people's communities where they weren't, genocided until like 17 or 1800s, they could go between 6 and 8 generations back before they had their first contact, right? And so in those cases, it would make more sense for them to see people as a descendiant if they had gone that long disconnected. In my case, a lot of our people, we are so, because of our genocide and because of the way things happen, like everybody has that admixture. And so because a lot of people have admixture, it's not about blood quantum. That doesn't really matter as much as having the lineage, having the culture, having the community. But yeah, I feel like each tribe is different based on your genocide, so it's relevant to you. But at the same time, I just don't feel like it's appropriate to call somebody who does have a certain amount of work done within their community, I don't think it's appropriate to call them a descendian, you know? But that's just me. I would, like, because in her case, she was raised that way. Um, in my case, I grew up knowing that my dad was native, right? I understand when people call me a descendant based on my life, but this is my dad, right? Um, but in other cases, I feel like a descendant kind of better applies when someone didn't even know they had indigenous ancestry and just found out yesterday. You know, I think that would be more of a descendian, in my opinion. Uh, it's just me. But yeah, like, and I find that a pretendian is someone who has no indigenous ancestry. And so, just on the definitions and concepts alone, I don't believe that the concept of descendian or pretendian fits for Lily Gladstone, in my opinion. Let's keep going.
The Kainai bloodline, which is from Red Crow, who settled in the blood tribe in Alberta. So the most blood you have is Métis. The Blackfeet community say they have no Gladstones enrolled, and as far as I can tell, her grandfather was the last one to experience res lifestyle. All 6 of his sons went to a Catholic private all-boys prep school in Seattle, Washington. Her parents met, married, and divorced in...
I'm confused though. Did she just say that the Blackfeet Nation claimed no Gladstones were enrolled, but didn't she also say that she was enrolled before earlier? I don't know. Look, that part's confusing to me. With what she meant there. But yeah. At the end of the day, though, if her lineage has been confirmed, she was given a headdress by Blackfeet Nation. Let's let Blackfeet community determine who is and isn't part of their community. I don't think other people should be stepping into it if that much is true.
In Washington, and although they did try to live in Browning and East Glacier Falls in her early years, never on the res. Historically, her family has always lived between Washington and Montana, and this started with her great-grandmother Lillian, who, despite being born on the Blackfeet Reservation, relocated and eventually died in Seattle, Washington. Personally, I don't ever appreciate being lied to, so the speech she made...
I don't understand where the lie is, so I feel like that should be better communicated. If there was a lie about this, evidence should be shown of that, and that should be better communicated. Because in that scenario, I can understand why you would call out a direct lie. But in this situation, it doesn't come off that way. It comes off as invalidating mixed natives, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know.
When she was the first Native American to win a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Motion Film just rubs me the wrong way.
I don't understand why it would rub you the wrong way, though. She's proven to be Indigenous. Is it because she's mixed? If you have a criticism about wanting more representation for Native Americans who are not white presenting or who are not light skinned or who are not as mixed, I think that's valid, a valid statement, a valid belief, and a valid opinion. But I do not believe that representation and colorism should be tied to invalidating indigeneity, in my opinion. I feel like it would be much better, like, the message would be well received if either she proved a direct way in which there was ever a lie told by Lily about her ancestry, then I would see why a call out would need to be made. But I'm not understanding that from this video. Or 2, if you were to explain and just focus on representation, whitewashed representation of Native Americans, and why we need to have spaces and representation where it's not people that look like me speaking on it, that's valid. Let's all repost that. I feel like she would be getting more support if it went either of those ways, versus in this way it comes off as you're invalidating mixed natives, as if you don't like Lily because she's mixed, in my opinion. And I disagree with that concept.
All of you, and this is for every little res kid, every little urban kid, every little...
Now, mind you, Lily's family's already come out to back her to say she's been on the res. So, I'm going to listen to community members over people outside of the community on what the facts are for the community, you know?
Native kid out there who has a dream, who is seeing themselves represented and our stories told.
This is nothing against light-skinned Native people. I myself am much lighter than I should be. These are my parents. But I understand the privilege that I have compared to some of my siblings and speak out about it. And I would never try to profit from my Indigenous ancestry.
This statement right here, she says she would never try to profit from her Indigenous ancestry. Hold on to that. We're going to come back to it.
I see descendians taking Native awards and roles that rightfully should have gone to a Native American.
I don't feel that descendian applies in Lily Gladstone's case by definition. I think it's kind of being used to degrade her for no reason other than the fact that she's mixed natives. You know what I mean? Because she's by definition not a descendian. A descendian would be somebody who, by definition, somebody who was often several, you know, more than just immediately removed or something. Like, she's admitting that her grandmother was on the reservation. That's just a few generations ago. Reservation status. Like, I don't agree with that. I think, you know what I mean? We should let it be for the white women who are wearing locks. Like, in my opinion, Lily Gladstone doesn't even present as white. So what is this argument that, oh, she doesn't have enough Native ancestors? And if it were something about the representation, I'd get it. Like, yeah, maybe she's light-skinned, but at the same time, even the original colonists, and I showed sources on the last video I did about Pocahontas, which I'll fucking link in the goddamn description. Anyway, but our colonizers described my people as varying in skin shades. They would say that we were born white and that we would get darker later on. And the reason that they saw us that way is because of how dark we were depended on how much time we spent in the sun. And so like, to me, there's also, like, on the other side of the world, we understand that skin shades vary across the hemispheres, but people want to act like that's not the same here, but it is. Skin shades do vary here. So you can be, obviously you're not going to be white hair, blue-eyed, you know, unless you're an albino. Albinoism did exist, I believe, over here. But you're not going to be, like, blonde hair, blue-eyed, you know, pale skin typically in most cases. Although there are, you know what, I actually do know Native Americans who are naturally, like, have blonde hair, blue eye, because it does happen, yeah. Like, honestly, it can happen. Like, the way that genetics work, the way that phenotypes express themselves, you can have all skin shades over here. You can have, like, a variety of skin and hair textures, colors, and types, and I just feel like it is locking us into a monolith to only describe us one certain way. Although it is a fact that most Native Americans do present darker skin, black hair, oftentimes straighter, but sometimes could be curly or wavy, you know? And that those are facts that most Native Americans did present that way. So I also do understand wanting that representation, and I think it should be there. I just felt like it shouldn't be used to invalidate Native Americans just because they don't look that way, you know?
Who actually experienced the hardships of what it was to be Indigenous.
Okay. If you want to say that about me because I experienced white privilege, yeah, fine. You can't say that about my dad. And here's another thing. I don't think you can say that about Lily Gladstone. Let's look at Lily Gladstone. Mind you, Lily does not present as a white woman. Does not. She presents Indigenous. So I don't understand this malice being pushed on her. I find it to be lateral violence, in my opinion. Because The fuck you mean Lily isn't native enough or hasn't experienced enough native issues when she grew up on a reservation, does not present white, has native ancestry, is connected to her culture, and was awarded a headdress by her nation? What?
I get upset. When I see your background, Lily, I see privilege. I see theater schools.
So there's nothing wrong with expressing frustration that somebody who is a mixed native had more access to opportunities to someone who is not a mixed native. I understand expressing frustration about that, and I think that if that is what the post focused on, instead of calling her a pretendian or a descendian, I would support it more. Because I do understand being like, look, if you are a mixed native and you have certain ancestry, it is possible you've had more opportunities in life than someone who doesn't have that same ancestry. That I get, right? But when it comes to, oh, you aren't native enough because you don't have as many native ancestors as me, even if you're enrolled, even if your community claims you and all that, even if you did grow up on a res and your family will verify it, then she wants to basically act like that's not native enough. That's why people were putting in the comments that they thought Fiona was jealous of Lily, because of when you're not explaining why, when you're not able to prove that someone's a pretendian, when you're not able to prove that someone's a descendian, but you're calling them that, it does come off as an insult for no reason, as an attack for no reason, and it does seem to have malicious intent. If she were an actual descendian, if she were an actual pretendian, it would be a really good video to call it out and to show those facts. But what the facts show is that Lily is not a descendian. Lily is actually Native American, and I don't know, by the definition of descendianism, she's not a descendian based on the facts that Fiona said, even though Fiona got the family lineage wrong. But whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Private schools. If you have to exaggerate or embellish an Indigenous ancestry to get a role, then you probably weren't that good at your craft to be.
I think you need to prove that she ever exaggerated or embellished her Indigenous ancestry to get a role, if you're going to say this. I don't sit there and tell people every single fucking European country I'm from, because there's too many of them, and I don't feel like naming it all day. I just say that my mom's fully white and my dad is mixed. And my dad, he is triracial. My dad is mixed Native American, European, and African descent. And my mom is fully European. Just white woman ass bitch. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't try to exaggerate my ancestry. I just don't know what words to use to succinctly tell you it. You know what I'm saying? And I think also how we identify is such a vulnerable thing. How I've identified has shifted over time in terms of what words do I use when discussing my identity, because over time not only does the correct way in words change, but also my connection to my tribes that I descend from has changed over time in terms of the work I've done with reconnecting within those tribes. And so I think also it's inappropriate, in my opinion, to say that someone's exaggerated or embellished their ancestry just because they don't sit there every single time and list every single thing about it, It's like she admitted she was 25% European, so it's like as if I accused her of embellishing her indigeneity because she had the European ancestry at all, I disagree with that. I don't think that this is a good way to go after people. Like, if you are actually concerned that she is a descendian, you need to prove it. But you know what I mean? And you shouldn't be calling people pretendian or descendian without proof. And this doesn't prove that. Otherwise, it's like we need to have some common definitions of what a descendian is. You can't just call every native you don't like a descendian. You can't. You can't just call every native you don't like a descendian. If they don't fit the definition of a descendian, they're not one. And by definition, she's not a descendian. So key characteristics of a descendian would be distant ancestry, lack of lived experience, and questionable claims. And everything that Lily has said, I feel, was backed up by her community. And so I'm not going to invalidate her community because that's not up for me to determine or do. So, yeah. And when it comes to, again, I want to bring your attention back to a statement made around here, I think it was. Let me see. Where was it? Let me see if it was here. Hold on.
This is nothing against light-skinned Native people. I myself am much lighter than I should be. These are my parents. But I understand the privilege that I have compared to some of my siblings and speak out about it. And I would never try to profit from my Indigenous ancestry.
Right here, she says she would never try to profit from her Indigenous ancestry. However, right here, you can see where she says, thanks for being here. The support is so appreciated. If you'd like to know inside details about stories I'm working on, please consider subscribing. And let's see. If I'm not mistaken, I feel like she used to put it right here. When you subscribe, it's $1. It's 99 cents per month if you do subscribe. And she asks people for $1 per month in the comments for, I believe, all of her posts that I had looked at one time had that, basically, that she had made herself, if I remember correctly. Let's see if I can find that. Oopsie. Why do I think I saw that before? Maybe it's just the videos. Right here. So just this video has it as well. I think it might just be the video she puts that on. And right here, so right here you can see she does ask people for money. Her page is about Indigenous issues, and she has been asking people for money where, you know, she's talking about Indigenous issues, and that technically could be a form of profiting off of indigeneity. You know, I often wonder if it's appropriate for me to be speaking on my own family history or my own thoughts within Native community based on my lineage or not. Yeah, so, you know, I can understand different opinions about that. But for me, I don't take any Indigenous roles from others. I just kind of make my own content, have my own thoughts in my own space, but I'm not here to, you know, try and represent like all people or anything like that. But yeah, I just happen to descend from a few different communities, and I'm also deaf. But yeah, so I disagree with her being called a descendian or a pretendian. I just don't feel that either definition fits to Lily. And so these are the theoretical receipts from the theoretical receipts from the investigation that was posted by Fiona. I don't think that it fits. Mind you, I just don't think it correlates to her being a descendian or pretendian, and her family has already come out and kind of debunked everything. Okay, so let's see what this post made where she's getting this information from. So somebody had said that the Blackfeet Tribal Business Council is still firing people without any warning. There was an investigation of a tribal employee. The 3 departments involved were enrollment, IT, and security. Well, my internet went out and then it came back on. I'm hoping that all you missed were whenever I asked basically why, like whenever I was reading here, whenever this was saying like this person was asking from the Facebook post that Fiona shared, why would these different departments be fired on the same day that Lily Gladstone was there. So I think this is what Fiona is claiming is evidence for that statement, which does take away some legal liability for her there, because now she can say, well, this is why I had a reason to believe that. But I don't think that this proves what she was saying. You know, I think it's speculation. It's not an actual evidence of anything happening. But if you repeat other people's speculation, that can remove some legal liability for you, in terms of you're not the one making these claims, you're just repeating what others said. But yeah, fucking. So Fiona does have the evidence that she was showing in her video, basically, or discussing in her video, posted as separate posts. I'm not going to read all of this because it's basically just what we just fucking saw up in the video, but I'm clicking through to show you that it is all here. However, just a reminder, this is her family, but some of the ancestors, I think after Howard, were wrong, if I'm not mistaken, if I understood that correct from the comments earlier. But yeah. Okay, and then how much shit is in here? God damn. I might not click through all of this. I was gonna, but oh wait, are we back to the beginning? Oh, yeah, we are. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's too much. Fuck that. Okay. Oh, it took us back from the top. That's unfortunate. I just want to show, before we go, the response that she had to this and why I feel like that angered the community even more. Let me show you. So, mind you, the comment section isn't going well for her over here either. But yeah. So one person here said, I am from the Blackfeet Res and was friends with Lily when we were younger. Danced with her at Powell's with her when we were like 7 years old. Another person said, what's your claim to fame on this investigation? Another person said, as a Native person who grew up on the Pine Ridge Reservation, I don't blame people for leaving their reservations. What I see are families seeking opportunity, stability, and housing. Leaving does not make them any less Indigenous. Their offspring who grew up in cities or just off their reservation are not any less Indigenous. Too often, the harshest criticism comes from within our own communities, where instead of uplifting and celebrating one another, we end up tearing each other down. Native people exist in many forms, experiences, and paths. Trying to force us into a single rigid box mirrors the same exclusionary logic used by white supremacists. So yeah. And one person said, are you calling Lily Gladstone a pretendian? Your posts are often unclear of your intent or specifically what you're investigating. So yeah. So another person basically had a lot to say about it, but to sum it up, they said she's never claimed to be enrolled, but has always said she's a descendant of the Blackfeet tribe. That doesn't make her any less than an enrolled member. She's proud of her heritage, and that should be celebrated and not run down in the debate, because she's not faking anything but her heritage, nor has she taken advantage of anyone or used it for her own personal gain for attention. If the tribe in question is okay with her claiming her heritage to them, then it shouldn't be an issue at all. And someone else says, strange on how our tribe acknowledges her, but you say different. I'm assuming they're Blackfeet. And someone else said, she's also related to Healy family. Her grandma is full Blackfoot. I read up on her. Extensive and interesting. Her history shows trader that had a child with a Blackfoot lady. And they keep going on to that and basically saying that she's Native. And someone else was asking, how does this differ from ICE gatekeeping and borders being built? If her people recognize her, how does it affect everyone else? Why is it an issue? She's got Indigenous blood in her regardless how much. She is still Indigenous. Who are we to dictate and gatekeep her from her people that already recognize her? Okay, so for a second also, I had thought that she was enrolled because I thought that's what Fiona was saying in her video whenever about the headdress situation as well. But so that's where I was like, well, if she's enrolled, then she's claimed. But you know, whether or not she's enrolled, she's definitely claimed. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And someone else said, looking forward to the actual defamation suit that happens over this one. Her nation claims her. This is open and shut for how many nations do things, mine included. Hope you have a lawyer. Another person said, looks like someone is jealous. Obsessed much. Lateral violence much. But yeah. So, that's there. And then right here, Fiona had posted that she experienced just as much anger when Buffy was outed. Truth hurts. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but someone had to be. So when Buffy St. Marie was outed, there were some people defending Buffy, saying, well, even if she lied about her connection, we still cannot go against whether or not a tribe adopted her in. If a tribe adopted her in, then it's up to them to determine if she claims it or not. However, so I understand why people said that. However, most people that I saw were basically like feeling completely betrayed by Buffy. Most reactions I saw, they were upset about Buffy and the evidence that came out. And even the ones that were still supporting Buffy, I didn't see anybody mad that the evidence came out. They were just simply stating if tribe adopted her in, they were not going to speak on to whether or not that tribe should claim her. You know, so I don't know. I just feel like comparing the Buffy situation to this is totally different because Buffy is proven to have lied about her ancestry over and over. And I don't believe that Lily did. So that's just me. But yeah. And right here, she said, to be clear, I called her a descendian. Otherwise, I absolutely agree. And right there, someone said, seeing people call Lily Gladstone a pretendian is a misuse of the term. So Fiona did call her a pretendian as well. She called her a descendian, but here she calls her a descendian pretendian right here. And so you did call her a pretendian. It is insulting. And I believe she said it in the video too, if I'm not mistaken. But calling her a descendian, calling her a pretendian, I think those are both, don't apply to Lily Gladstone. Both are insulting, both are inappropriate here. In my opinion. But where was it? So right here, she's acting like she didn't call her a pretendian, kind of, in my opinion, but she did. But yeah, so she reposted saying that, like, seeing people call Lily a pretendian is a misuse of the term. She has native ancestors. That word should be reserved for people who fabricate indigenous identity, not thrown around carelessly. And then they were saying, let's focus the scrutiny on Hollywood's pattern of casting lighter-skinned female native actors to portray historical native people. Because, you know, they were talking about representation. If this and only this is what Fiona had posted to begin with, you know, I think it would have gone better. But right here where she says, to be clear, I called her a descendian, otherwise you agree. Fiona, you did call her both. You called her a pretendian and you called her a descendian. It's literally right fucking here. So, you know what I mean? Like, I just... Well, that went too far over there. Let's go back. Oh, well, I fucked that up. Yeah, right here. So I just, you know, I feel like we shouldn't be acting like that didn't just happen. But even still, by definition, she's not a descendian either. Yeah. Did I pass up everything? Whatever, I wasn't fucking looking. No, I totally passed that shit up. Let me go back. Okay, hold on. Okay, yeah, no, that's it. Alright, so then here she posted another video about the whole situation. So hold on. I think this one's about it. Let me see.
A little PSA. Pretendians and their defendians are no friendians. That is all.
So you're saying that you know, here she was acting like, she said pretendian and their defendians are no friendians. Here she was basically acting like, is that in reference to Lily Gladstone? Because right here you're acting as if you didn't call her a pretendian. You said you called her a descendian, but you did call her a pretendian before. You know what I'm saying? And so then when you here and you're saying pretendian and their defendians are no friendians, after this fallout, if that fallout just hadn't happened, I'd support that. Whatever wouldn't. If it had nothing to do with it and the timing is just suspicious, that's fine too. But if it's related to the Lily Gladstone altercation, that's pretty fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Because you're calling an actual Native American and people who are actually Blackfeet from the reservation, from the Blackfeet community, people who are defending their own tribal members, saying they're not friends, not allies. That seems like you're not respecting tribal sovereignty in that context. Like, I felt like this was not a good response in context, in my opinion. And then she posted another video keeping those pretendians in check, but I'm not even gonna watch this one because I don't know. And then they have this one here, pretendian interview, the aftermath. Let's see this one.
Today we are here to discuss the curious case of Fiona Moar, the pretendian witch hunter. We're going to ask her a few questions today. Fiona, how do you feel about all the recent backlash you've been receiving?
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I just went out there and I did my best. I did 110% for my team, and that's all I can ask.
So, in my opinion, she doesn't seem to have any sort of like accountability for why it's messed up to negate tribal sovereignty, why it's messed up to invalidate how tribes identify their own community members, why it's messed up to invalidate Native American lineages. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know. I think that's it on the situation that she posted, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like that's it, so we'll end it here. But yeah, you can see why I'm concerned. Okay, one more. Okay. She said, my final thoughts on the Lily Gladstone situation. Do I think the Blackfeet tribe wanted to claim her because she got famous? Partially, yes, and they're partially because of her white mother's part in helping to revive their language. Thank you for opening a safe space for us to have this dialogue. I feel like, you know, the community is discussing that she's been part of a community since her childhood, since before she got famous. So I feel like that doesn't apply here, and I think it's kind of insulting to the Blackfeet community, in my opinion. But yeah, well, let's just watch this. Hold on.
Y'all want to hear the drama happening on Indigenous TikTok? Okay.
Hi, I wanted to stitch this video and use it for my final thoughts on the situation before we go into the new year, because I really like how you broke down the situation from an unbiased outsider's perspective. However, I do feel like I have to correct you on a few things. The last person that I found was enrolled in the Blackfeet tribe was her paternal grandfather as well. So I found that she wasn't a pretendian, she was more a descendian. She has...
By definition, a descendiant is several generations back. Not your grandparents. If your grandparents are indigenous, you're not a descendiant. By definition. Okay? So she's admitting right now she's wrong about her being a descendiant as well as admitting she's wrong about her being a pretendian. And she's admitting that she found that Lily was not a pretendian, yet she called her a pretendian anyway. I don't agree with that. Um, and I don't agree with calling people whose grandparents are proven to be Native American descendants. I don't agree with that. So, yeah. Anyway.
A little bit of Indigenous blood from several tribes. And when I made the post, actually an elder from the Blood tribe in Alberta.
And I find that, again, to be kind of weaponizing blood quantum, in my opinion, and genocide against Lily, in my opinion.
Said that they thought she was from there because they have a hall, a Gladstone Hall named after her. And then she's enrolled to the Blackfeet tribe, and also this.
You just admitted that she descends from multiple tribes. Is it not possible she's a descendant of them? Who knows? But either way, I feel like you shouldn't be making these statements without actual proof of what you're saying. If you prove someone's native, you prove someone's connected to their community, you prove somebody has close native ancestry, you can't call them a descendant or pretendian. That evidence does not add up to that conclusion. I feel like it's just misleading and fucked up and contributes to Indigenous erasure.
This tribe was saying they thought she was from there. So she didn't have enough blood quantum to be registered to a tribe until that ceremony, because the Blackfeet are able to make their own decisions on who they enroll.
So this is where I was confused about whether or not Lily is enrolled, because I thought Fiona said that Lily was enrolled, but then I thought I saw in the comments that Lily's not enrolled. I don't know if Lily's enrolled or not, but what I do know is it's up to Blackfeet Nation to determine what's in their community, and if they claim her, we shouldn't be speaking on that. And if you have thoughts about representation in society, and all of that, that's fine and valid, but I don't think it should be tied to invalidating somebody for being native when they actually are native and they proved it. You know?
And who they claim. Some people agreed with the decision and some people didn't. But if you're going to lower the blood quantum for Lily, why not lower it for everyone else? What about the other disenrolled, disenfranchised?
Again, I think she's putting blanket statements from one tribe to everybody. Each tribe has their own enrollment criteria that should be respected. And personally, if people do have the ancestry, if people do want the mindset of learning and coming back to their community, I personally do believe that opening that door to a level, but it would have to have criteria. Like in my community, you can't just be like, oh, I have native ancestry, even if it's true. You can't just say, hey, I have the ancestry, I'm enrolled now. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to participate in community. You have to do X, Y, and Z. Like, you can't just be like, I'm here, accept me. Like, you have to be a part of the community. And so I think if we open that option to more descendants, it will open the door for powers and numbers, for tribal sovereignty, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's up to each tribe to determine who's part of their tribe. And yeah, but I think it's contributing to erasure, to negate Indigenous ancestry. It's one thing to speak on who should be representing us versus telling people they're not native enough because you want them to have more native ancestors. I don't agree with that. I mean, it's different if she actually didn't have native ancestry, but when someone does have native ancestry and you're dismissing it, yeah, fuck that.
First Nations losing their rights. And I know you guys were all so worried about that security guard. He did get his job back, but it's still unclear of why he lost his job in the first place. And thank you to everyone correcting me on the fact that Browning and East Glacier were in the Blackfoot tribe border, because that wasn't really clear before.
So here she's admitting where part of it, where she was claiming that Lily wasn't on the reservation, tribal members have corrected her. They consider that part of their land.
But I think the biggest point of contention for me, and I haven't made that clear yet, is the over-exaggerated Indigenous experience. And what I mean by that is...
But what did she over-exaggerate if everything she said is true?
She spent a couple of years in the res with a mother who owned an education center. So it wasn't your typical res experience. Indigenous people have...
Okay, not everybody has the same res experience, but to negate or deny her res experience just because her mom was involved in education, I find extremely dismissive. Um, you know, like, are you gonna then say, oh, if you worked at a fish hatchery, that means you're not native? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't understand this logic right here. I think it's one thing, you know, to speak about Lily Gladstone's privilege in terms of she had access. It's a privilege to have access to a lot of the opportunities she had that other people didn't. You know, it's possible that there are different levels of privilege in Native community to speak on and have very good rightful opinions about. But calling her a descendian and a pretendian, I heavily disagree with, particularly for these reasons. As if a Native person can't be in education. The fuck? As if a Native, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, like, and whenever you say, well, it's not typical for Native people to work in education, you know, or to Native people to have certain roles, but they're trying to break those barriers and make it typical, that seems like a you problem, not a them problem, in my opinion.
have so much trauma to get through. Residential school trauma from our parents.
Who's to say Lily does or does not have these traumas, you know? Like, I just feel like it is okay to have your trauma. It's valid. But your trauma as an Indigenous person does not negate or erase another Indigenous person's experience, and vice versa. So this argument and statement I don't agree with at all. And I'm not going to trauma dump about my trauma related to my family genocide. But yeah, anybody with Native ancestry does have that, whether or not we processed it.
60 scoop trauma from our grandparents. The CFS system targets our kids. And because of all this trauma, we're overrepresented in the justice system, in the homeless population, in the addictions. We barely make it through. And when I look back at Lily Gladstone's history and her parents' history, it was a beautiful life. It was nothing like the...
I find that coming off as very bitter, in my opinion, where she's saying, you guys look like your life is too good to be Native. I find that very bitter. Because who's not to say that they've had these experiences, you know? A lot of people, not everybody shares their shit. Some people are like me, I don't give a fuck. I'll talk about it. Some people, though, they're private. They don't want their personal shit shared like that, and they're just going to share the good memories for them and the good moments. But just because people have X, Y, and Z going for them doesn't mean they don't have this trauma. And I think it's one thing to be pointing out the ways in which she's privileged and say, I think that you had more opportunities in life because you had these resources that most Natives don't have. I think that's a valid statement. But if you're sitting there like your life was good and mine was terrible, so therefore you're not Native enough, I heavily disagree with that, because that also stereotypes what a Native experience should be, and there's no such thing as that, in my opinion. And I don't think that all Natives have to come from a place of trauma and that's what makes you Native. Yes, it's true that all Natives have intergenerational trauma to process, but having Native children who don't have trauma is the goal. That's what we want, you know? Like, yeah, like, I don't think that is a bad thing. I think that is a good thing. Yeah, anyway.
The typical Indigenous person experience.
I just don't agree with the I suffered, so you should have to suffer too mentality.
So yeah, just the over-exaggerating her Indigenous experience.
And she's never proven or shown examples of what was over-exaggerated. I don't agree with this rhetoric. Ugh.
for a movie career is just, it's a little frustrating. I really wanted to make December Pretendian month in honor of someone who lost their life over a pretendian, but because of all this, I was asked by the family not to. So that was a little frustrating. That feels like the whole month of work was out the window.
If family are telling you they don't want what you're doing associated with their family story, I wouldn't even be bringing it up right now. I find that disrespectful, and I think it speaks to an example of what are you representing that they don't want to be associated with it. Why wouldn't they trust you with this story? I don't think that she should be mentioning that, you know, and I don't think that, I don't know, I just feel like other people's trauma should not be tied to you calling people a pretendian or a descendian that can prove they're native, that can prove they're non-descendian by definition. You know, otherwise it's like, I'm very confused where she's getting her definition from, or if she just uses it as a blanket statement to have an insult for.
And yeah, I blocked so many people over this. I don't tolerate bullying on my page. If you were making mean comments or engaging with mean comments, sorry.
How are you going to say you don't tolerate bullying on your page, but you made the videos you made about Lily? Oof. That looks a little hypocritical.
Sorry, bye. I don't need to deal with that. It reminded me of the time I had to block probably half of Ebb and Flow when I reshared this meme. I didn't even create it. I just shared it.
She forgot to put that picture in the video, so I don't even know what the fuck she's talking about. But I accidentally hit the wrong button a second ago. Whoops.
After the original creator took it down. And I saw that she was probably getting bullied to take it down, and she did. I'm just a person who is very non-confrontational, but also I don't really back down from my opinions. I am standing strong.
I would say that how I saw her in the comments doesn't come across as if she's non-confrontational, because she was literally arguing with the Gladstone family about who their own family members were. So that does come off as contradictory and confrontational there to me.
Echo maker, or she who speaks the truth. I learned very early on in life that
I believe she believes she's telling the truth, but I don't believe she is accurate, and I believe she's misguided with how she weaponizes blood quantum and mixed ancestry over mixed natives. And also, if you say anti-Indigenous rhetoric to mixed natives and you dismiss natives for being mixed, but then you say, oh, I'm not against mixed natives while you're dismissing natives for being mixed, you're still being against mixed natives. You just don't want to take accountability for it, in my opinion.
telling the truth doesn't make you popular. And am I going to stop talking about Indigenous issues? No. I talk about the details of these stories that aren't going to be talked about in mainstream media or articles. It's going to bring controversy, and it's going to bring crabs in a bucket mentality, but I'm fine with that.
I don't understand how she thinks people calling her out for labeling a Native woman a pretendian and a descendian who can prove she's Native and connected. She thinks that's crab bucket mentality, but she doesn't think calling Native people pretendians and descendians is. Okay. Just, all right. Got it. Okay.
I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm pretty used to it by now. And that opportunity I lost to host my first event as an MC, I was pretty sad about it. But I made more this month in my pretendian post, so I guess it made it all worth it. I will be
here she's saying she was sad she lost an opportunity, but she made more this month with her pretendian post. So previously she said she didn't profit off of being Indigenous. Now she's admitting that she has profited off of being Indigenous, which she claims is what made this worth it. So that's interesting. Interesting contradiction right there.
Asking for double if they ever want to reschedule, just for the inconvenience.
Y'all want to hear the drama?
I don't think that she's taking accountability, in my opinion. Oh, you know what? Let's look at the description of this post before we move on. Oh, I think I already read this. Okay, yeah. I think that is it. Oh, nope, there's another one apparently. Is this the same one? No, that's a shorter one. Okay, let's watch this one too. My bad, I thought we were done. So this one says, I made 2 responses with a devil emoji. It says, my final thoughts on the Lily Gladstone situation. I wonder which one will go more viral. I don't understand why she cares about going viral in this situation over addressing and respecting another Indigenous woman. You know? Like, I just, and that rubs me the wrong way, that initial commentary there. But let's see what this has.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you take social media way too seriously. There's this thing that happens specifically in Indigenous social media. When a controversy happens, everyone dogpiles on them.
So previously she was saying that she was bullied, and now she's saying that everybody else takes social media way too seriously, but she doesn't see the issue with calling a verified Native American woman who is claimed by her community a pretendian or a descendian when this woman isn't even a descendian. I find that problematic.
Trying to give their 2 cents, trying to go the most viral over their meme.
So is this where the viral comments came from? Because out of context, it looks like you're the one who cares about that, not other people.
You know what this actual Indigenous trauma gave me? Thick fucking skin. I could care less if you don't like my content. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And you know what? I'm okay with that.
I also disagree with, like, one of the reasons she was criticizing Lily was saying that Lily didn't have a Native enough experience to be a Native American woman. But if you're from a different tribe, how are you supposed to know what her Native experience is to be like? Each tribe has a different experience being Native. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree. Like, to a point, I support pan-Indianism because I believe as we are unified, we can do more with resistance, land back, cultural preservation, community networking, etc. But then on other levels, I have struggled with pan-Indianism in this way because there's no one way for us to be. And I don't like it where people like Fiona in this case are projecting what her version of being Native is onto other people. And everybody has a different experience with that. So, yeah.
Block and delete. I cover Indigenous issues and controversies and details that you're not going to hear anywhere else. It hasn't made me popular, but it certainly has people talking. And if you're still here to see, welcome. Watch your mouth and we should get along.
So that's where it's like, you see these videos, I don't feel like Fiona is taking any accountability for the harm she's causing spreading this type of rhetoric, you know, because it negates tribal sovereignty when it comes to the tribes determining who is part of their community. And I think, okay, I think that's for real it. I think that's for real it. So I think it impacts tribal sovereignty. I think it impacts, you know, lateral violence and discrimination that we all face. I think it creates stereotypes and monoliths about what we're supposed to be like. I just find it extremely problematic. I don't think you should be calling Native Americans descendian or pretendian without proof, or, you know, without really good reason to believe it. And yeah, I just don't feel like it should be used as a blanket insult. I understand questioning people's lineage when things don't add up. And I understand being upset if you feel someone was lying. But if you're not proving how someone lied and you're calling them a descendian and a pretendian, then it just comes off like you're insulting them, especially when they're claimed by their community. And the statements you made claiming they lied, their community backs them up on and claims they're telling the truth. So it's like, am I supposed to believe you or a community? You know, like, am I supposed to believe someone who's not Blackfeet over who is Blackfeet? Or do I believe who is Blackfeet over who is Blackfeet? Personally, I'm leaning towards I'm going to support tribal sovereignty. At the end of the day, I'm always going to back tribal sovereignty. So I don't think that Fiona should be out here making statements about who is or isn't Blackfeet if she can't prove it. That's me personally. But I do enjoy, like, I've enjoyed her previous content. And I was watching all that on TikTok because she removed all her fucking posts from the last year. I just pulled up her Facebook for this live stream, and I hadn't found her on Facebook before. But, yeah, so I had used to follow her on TikTok, but I did unfollow her because the video made me extremely uncomfortable. And, you know, if somebody has criticisms about me speaking on these issues, because, mind you, this is my mother, I understand that, and I think that is valid. And so, you know, I support whatever you think in terms of representation. The reason I do continue to speak on it is because, you know, this is my father. And so for me, being connected to my dad is extremely important, and it's all about my connection to my dad and my ancestors. And I think that's what we all need to focus on. Like, when it comes to being Native American, it's about a connection to our parents. It's about a connection to our community. It's about understanding who we are, knowing our history, knowing our language, knowing our customs. It's about continuing our people. And that's why I disagree with negating tribes on who is or isn't part of their community. So yeah. And also, before we go, just a reminder, I want to remind you guys, I'm trying real hard to organize a Jeopardy game here. I did make some categories. It's Native American themed. Most of it is related to Northern Natives because, look, bitches, this is just what I fucking know. Sorry, guys. But everybody is welcome to play it. And the categories are music, movies, TV shows, historical figures, modern leaders, and moments on TikTok. If you do want to play this Jeopardy game, please let me know when you're free, and I will get you on the panel if you'd like to join the panel. If I can't find people who want to play, then I might just have to just show you guys the presentation and be like, look, I'm a fucking nerd. But hey, I made the game, and if anybody does want to play it, I think it'll be fun. And I also, this one we're going to do a timer, so it should be much quicker than that Wheel of Fortune game. I'm hoping this one takes 20-ish or so minutes, tops. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so we covered Jeopardy. We covered, we did a follow-up on the She Evolves live event situation. I believe that attendance was impacted by that altercation. You can see the missing, you can see the empty chairs, people missing from those chairs in the aftermarketing. So I do believe that that altercation did impact event attendance. However, I also believe it was still a really good event. A lot seemed to have happened with the follow through of the production, and at least 100 people, I believe, if not more, were in attendance. And so it does seem to have been a good turnout, and everything looked good for the after marketing on social. And we also saw that toxic TikTok trends is off of YouTube. Apparently they're fucking taken down. I'm disappointed. They have so much good evidence, and even if I disagree with everything they fucking say on there, like, that was really valuable to the community to be documenting and have that evidence of what happened. So I hope they can come back or re-upload on a different channel. And last but not least, we finished up with the Lily Gladstone situation. Y'all know how I feel about that. I don't think people should be calling her a pretendian or a descendian. I disagree with that. I hope Fiona does take accountability for what occurred here, you know, in the future. It would be great to see her make a comeback with taking accountability and focusing on addressing people who are actually problematic, or if she does have feelings about representation, expressing that in a way that does not negate actual Native American lineage. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I hope for better processing and production with that when it comes to Fiona, because I was kind of disappointed. And yeah, like, as y'all know, I don't agree with that shit. But anyway, so thank you for joining me today. I would really like it if you want to play Jeopardy. Let me know. I probably, you know, I know I'm a nerd, but it would be real cool. It'd be real fun. Just think about it. Let me know. All right, I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great day. Yeah, I am gonna leave now. Bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.